This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Chris Williams has grown his company one client at a time, like many successful entrepreneurs. If you want to read more about people like Chris, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Chris Williams, managing director of Aginto, a digital marketing firm in Sarasota. Chris, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me. Glad to be on the show. I'm a longtime listener and subscriber, so I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. We appreciate that. Awesome. We'll just talk about how amazing your subscription. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a plug. It's not a shameless plug. But all right, so you're a listener, so you know that we've in the past we've done these rapid fire questions at the end.
Yeah.
And this is a new year, new year, new podcast. Well, it's not really a new podcast, but it's a new format. We're going to ask these questions first, so the listeners can kind of get a little bit of a feel for who you are and kind of what makes you tick. So we're just going to get right into it. All right, we're going to start with how many unread emails do you have right now?
Oh my goodness. 64.
64. Okay, we're mid-morning in early January.
Yeah.
I like it. And I've seen what people add to that question. I saw it on like an Instagram reel of the Philadelphia Eagles. How many texts, unread text? Do you have unread text right now?
I do. Yeah, I'm pretty bad about it. I got 10 right now. It's not horrible, but
10 doesn't sound too bad. I mean, some of these NFL stars have like 838 texts. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. You know what? I try to be more intentional about viewing them and responding to them, kind of like we used to look at email, right? Like, hey, I'm going to get to that as soon as I can. It used to be where a text would interrupt my day. I got to get to this right now. And now I'm trying to be more intentional about the time.
It's so hard to figure out what's worthy of an alert and stopping your day,
right,
and what isn't, right? I think we all struggle with that. With that balance.
Pretty much, if it's the missus or my daughter or my mom, all right, you'll get my or a team member. All right, you got me right now. Yeah. But outside of that, you're gonna have to wait till the end of the day.
Yeah. All right, how many hours of sleep do you need a night to not be cranky the next day?
To not be cranky, 4.
4. You can do it in 4.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go back to your phone. What are the 2 most used apps on your phone?
Most used apps. Probably Asana. We use Asana here at Aginto for project management, task management, and so I'm in and out of that all day. And as much as I hate to admit it, it's probably Twitter. I've been using Twitter since 2009, and that's where I'm at in the evening. Yeah, for sure.
That's where you get your info. I like it. Okay. Excellent. Asana, we just started using that about 6 months ago at the Observer Media Group. And
cool.
Like so many other tech things, we kind of went in kicking and screaming. Some of us like, why do we need this? How's it going to help us? But it has definitely led to some efficient group management. So everybody knows what everybody else is kind of working on.
Yeah,
it's very helpful.
Exactly. I used it when I was a one-man band. And I've been using it for years, and it's been great for the team as we've grown. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, you got a really fascinating life story, and we're going to get into that in a second. But before we do, Chris, tell us about Aginto. What is that company? What do you guys do, and what is your niche in the marketplace?
Sure. So we're Aginto, a digital agency. We're a full-service digital marketing and media agency, which means that we help small to medium-sized businesses create a strategy that's going to reach their target audience and then attract them back to a central point, a website or what have you, to convert those leads into sales for that small to mid-sized business. We've got all the team members here in South Florida. We don't outsource anything, so everybody's here local, and we have the team here that can execute those strategies and report back month after month about how we're doing, what we're seeing, how we're improving in the market for that client.
And how did you started the company? I believe it was about 15 years ago, 12 years ago.
Almost 2011. So,
Right.
I got to count with my toes now, Mark. I
Yeah,
got.
yeah, that's good. Right, we're in a new year. That's right. What what sort of led to what were you
Yeah.
doing, and were you in the technology space? What led to you founding this
So I was
business?
outside. I was in the technology space, but kind of outside. 2009, 2010, I worked for a company, Easy Way Ordering. They did online restaurant menus for restaurants. So this is back, Pizza Hut, Domino's, they had online ordering, but mom and pop shops really didn't have it. And so we would sell them online ordering restaurant menus. And it was an easy sale, man. It was great. But I was the coder, and I had a little coding experience, not a ton, but a little bit. But I was the coder, and they ended up getting acquired by one of the big players back then. And I say they got acquired because I did not. And
Yeah,
so I was here, in Florida, a little over 1,000 miles away from my hometown of Cincinnati, and no income, no job, no nothing. And I always like to mention that right around when I do tell this story, which isn't that often, but I always like to mention that this is early 2011, and my daughter is 13. So if you do the math, you'll probably realize that I had no job, no income, soon to be no place to live, and a baby on the way.
yeah,
Stress, yeah, pressure. So that's where I was when I started the business.
yeah. You're at that desperation level. What was that like for you, sort of mentally, emotionally, to kind of get through that? And then, starting a business is much different, right, than getting a job and getting a paycheck where you're coming in every
Yeah.
week and you know the paycheck is coming in. It's all on you. So tell me about that mindset at that time in your life.
Yeah, it was, I'd love to tell you that I knew I could do it and blah, 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 motivation. But I was really in a dark place. I spent, when I stopped couch surfing, I spent 6 weeks living in my car, and it could have been a whole lot worse, Mark. Like, I served with the Salvation Army, and, we could talk about that later, but, I wasn't on the street, right? I could have been sleeping
Yeah.
on the street. So I slept in my car for like 6 weeks, and then I sold that to get the money to move into the Whitfield Motel. And the Whitfield is still there. It's over there by the Sarasota Airport. 1 out of 5 stars. It's not the Ritz Carlton, So there were
Yeah.
moments in that motel where I'm just like, bro, you got to figure something out. What are you doing? I was
Yeah.
29, and just kind of down in the dumps. And I remember having this moment, March 31st of 11. Yeah, I'm 29 years old. My birthday's April 1st, and so that's a milestone. Turning
Yeah.
30, and I'm sitting here in this motel room with like sticky floors and moldy smelling air conditioning, and I remember sitting there and crying. And I'm not much of an emotional guy, but man,
Yeah.
it was like a what we call it, like a come to Jesus moment. And
Yeah.
yeah, April 1st, I woke up with this sense of like gratitude. It's weird. I
Right.
the night before I cried and prayed. I'm a Christian guy, and um, April 1st, yeah, I woke up and just had this sense of gratitude. Like I was oddly grateful for my pillow and for the blanket. It was weird. I was oddly grateful for I had some leftover Little Caesars pizza. That was going to be birthday lunch, and I was grateful for it. And
Yeah.
had not been that way prior. It was like a 180. And so I knew I had this idea for Aginto. It wasn't Aginto then. It was just, how can I make some coin?
Right.
I knew I had that idea, and I knew and I knew how to go and get business. When we were working with Easy Way Ordering, we would go business to business.
Yeah.
We get a lot of no's, but we would get some yeses. So I'm like, okay, I know I can do that. I've got an idea. There's a need in the market to build websites or
Right.
help with social or whatever. I'm going to do this, but I knew I needed to make ends meet, and so I got myself a full time job, a night shift job at the Goodwill.
Oh
Uh,
wow. Okay.
yeah, shouts out to the Goodwill.
Yeah.
They put me at Beneva and Weber at a donation center, midnight to
Sure.
8 a.m. And Mark, you'd be surprised. People make goodwill donations at 3:45 in the a.m. It's crazy, but it does happen.
Hey, you're purging your closet. It's a 24-hour thing. You gotta get that feeling of getting rid of that stuff.
Exactly. So I was the guy, and they were cool. The Goodwill wanted to know. The Goodwill was like, hey, we understand you don't want to retire from the Goodwill Donation Center. What is it that you want to do, and how can we help? And so they let me bring my laptop to work, and the bell would go off. I would go pick up stuff and sort it. And I would sit back down at my laptop and work on a website or a client file or whatever. And that lasted almost 2 years. It was probably close to 18 months. And it was huge for me to be able to do both of those things at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so you kept it going. And I'm just fascinated by your positive attitude. And as you said, you don't tell this story a lot, but I've known you for quite some time, just seeing you at events, and we've gotten to know each other. And I mean, I see behind you is your Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance plaque for winning some award, because you're always enthusiastic and you got energy when you come in a room and people like being around you. I mean, how did you keep this positive spirit that you have today? How did you keep that back then?
Just by being grateful. And, I've talked to some, mentees, I guess we call them, about, being grateful and having gratitude and everything, and not to misconstrue it with content, right? Like I wasn't content. I lived in that motel 11 months. I wasn't content living in that motel. But I was grateful that I wasn't in my car, and I was grateful that I wasn't on the street, and I was grateful that the rent was paid. And when you have that sense of gratitude, everything else kind of falls into place. You're grateful for an opportunity. When you walk into a business and they don't say, get the heck out of here, no solicitation, you're grateful for that opportunity, even if you don't get the sale, right? So I try to keep that mindset. Did I have some down days? Yeah, of course, but trying to stay positive and seeing its result in every facet of my life, man, I just continue to lean into it, and I preach it every day.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's, as you just mentioned, sort of, right, it's that perspective, right? Getting a no or rejection from a client, that might be hurt and sting in the moment, but it's not what you went through in 2011.
Right. No, it's not what I went through 2011. And certainly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, in 2011, I'm by myself in that motel. That's a good thing. My daughter didn't have to spend the night in those motels or anything. But, as I've grown as a person, as I've grown as a business owner, I have my wife now, and she's my backbone. And so now it's even easier to be grateful. Because when you look at life, it's easier to be grateful about things when you got a good partner in your corner. So
yeah. And before we move on to some leadership questions, as you're talking, I'm curious: you must still drive past that hotel? I mean, you're out and about, you're Sarasota, Bradenton, you're going around. Yeah. Does it flash back in your head? Do you smile? Do you have a sense of pride? What's going through your mind when you are by yourself, you're listening to the radio, and you're driving past that hotel on 41?
Yeah, man. So I'm driving by myself. I'm listening to the Observer podcast, and
love it.
And I'll drive past the Whitfield, and I just kind of smile. It does take me back to. I get a deja vu feeling of what it felt like on a random Tuesday afternoon, where I would get off of work at the Goodwill and try to run my business, quote unquote, run my business still, until I fell asleep. And there was a little picnic table out there. And so I would sit there and steal Wi-Fi from the neighbor.
Yeah.
I don't know who that was back then, but shout out to you. And I would work on my laptop, right? And so when I drive past, I kind of see the picnic table is still there. And yeah, it feels good, man. It feels real good.
I know the picnic table. I've seen that picnic table. I could picture that picnic table.
Yeah.
That's wild. Amazing. All right, so you got this business, and as we said earlier, you're out there, 15 years or so growing this company. What have you learned over this time about leadership, and what are the characteristics of a good leader that you have found in your business?
I think leadership is, and I think a lot of people talk about how it's about serving, right? It's about serving those who you are leading, and not to be misconstrued with instructing. Right. So instructors say this, they demand that, and they want it a certain way, blah, blah, blah. You do what I say, so on and so forth. Leading is about serving those and pouring into those that you're leading. When you do that, you get this buy-in from those that you're leading because they understand that you authentically, you genuinely care about them, not just like as an employee, a team member. Like they understand that you genuinely care about them as a person and their goals are your goals. And when you do that genuinely, there's this buy-in that occurs. And now they want to be more efficient. They want to reach their potential, for the good of the business because they know that your goals are aligned with their goals.
Yeah. And that helps continue to motivate them to want to be part of that organization.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'll also mention that, and I got this from Joey Brannon and Devin Dash over at Axiom. They taught me the importance of the one-on-one. And so I have a one-on-one with every team member every month. And that creates this open dialogue where they can talk about things that they're dealing with in and outside of work. Right. And so this relationship is formed where you can genuinely get to the root and genuinely get feedback from a team member because they know they're in this safe space where they can be honest. Right.
Yeah.
It's been huge for us.
Yeah, I was going to segue to the next question. I wanted to ask you, what's a piece of leadership advice that you have received that has resonated with you? It might have been what you learned from Joey and Devin and those guys, but what stands out in your mind as good leadership advice?
Good. You know what? I've got it on my wall here. I'm going to read it verbatim.
Yes.
And I don't know whose quote it is. I should probably look it up, but it is, anybody can hold the helm when the sea is calm. And the reason I have this on my wall, anybody can hold the helm when the sea is calm, because in down times, right? Like it's easy to hold it when it's easy, but in down times, like, are you willing to steer the ship, right? And in bad times, but conversely, are you willing to steer the ship and stay calm when things are high? My second year or so, probably closer to third year in business, I did my first $100,000 in revenue, and I remember for about probably at least a month, I kind of kicked my feet up. Mama, I made it,
Yep.
and please understand, $100,000 in revenue is not $100,000 in your pocket, right? So
a lot of things that need to be fed and
exactly,
paid.
exactly.
$100,000.
I was still living in a little tiny apartment, you know what I mean? But I kind of kicked my feet up. Mama, I made it, and it took about a month for me to realize, like, man, you're being real complacent here. You're not holding the helm the way you should be on the high. So I keep this on my wall because I want to stay calm in the high moments. I want to stay calm in the low moments and just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, it reminds me of I don't know if it's necessarily a quote, but I've heard this story about Nick Saban, the coach who was the coach at Alabama for so many years, that that one of the nights they won one of their national championships at Alabama, that night he was on a plane on a recruiting trip.
I've heard that. Yeah, I love that.
And that just resonated with me. It's like, this guy he's never complacent, and he's always looking for, what do I need to do to be here again next year?
Yeah, 100%. I love that mindset.
Yeah, excellent. Any other mentors or things that you've learned along your career that stand out in your mind?
Yeah, so much. There's so many people who have poured into me, and that's probably part of the reason why I try to pour into others. A lot of my life is about giving back. You know that about me. I'll cite Dr. King's quote, that everybody should pick themselves up by their bootstraps, but that it's a cruel jest to expect a bootless man to pick himself up by his bootstraps. So, you see me at events. Yes, I work a lot of hours, but the goal is to have the opportunity to give back and to give somebody else who might not have boots, an opportunity to pick themselves up by bootstraps.
Yeah, and Salvation Army. Tell us about that. Your involvement in Salvation Army.
Yeah, when the business began to grow, meaning I had a little bit more time. I had a couple employees take some things off, team members take some things off my plate. I wanted to give back, and the Salvation Army was the place to do it for two reasons. My mom took me to soup kitchens growing up. As a kid, I remember going to soup kitchen, feed the homeless. But two, when I was at the Whitfield and my daughter was still a toddler, I went to a laundromat to do laundry, and there was a woman
Yeah.
there that was she had a bag of quarters, and she was like, "Hey, I'm just trying to bless folks, help out. Can I pray for you?" I'm like, if you only knew, yeah, I'll take that. And it might sound funny, but 8 quarters went a long way, when money was so tight, and she worked with the Salvation Army. So when I got the opportunity to give back, that's where I went and started serving in the kitchen. And I was there as often as I could, at least once a week. They made me the 2016 volunteer of the year. And then in 17, they asked if I'd be willing to join the board, which I was elated, of course. Yeah. So I joined the board in 17. And at the start of COVID, at the start or just before COVID, the chair stepped down and stepped off the board. And the director asked if I would be the chair. And I audibly laughed. Like I thought she was, kidding. But she was serious. And so, I thought about it, talked with my wife and prayed about it and took the challenge and been the chair ever since.
Amazing story and group. Well, before we let you go, Chris, what's new for Aginto in 2025? What can we expect from you guys coming up this year?
I mean, we're going to continue to do the great things that we're doing. I've been blessed to have some amazing team members join the team. And so, we're going to continue to be involved in the Alliance and the Sarasota Chamber. We just joined the Manatee Chamber, so we're excited to get out there and kind of spread our footprint into Manatee. But, man, we'll continue to do the great things and produce results that we do for our clients. But all of us are going to have even more opportunities to pour into this community and give back and have tremendous impact going forward. So I'm excited about 25.
Excellent. Me as well. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.